Moving to thing number three, one of my favorite topics, as always, we've got Janet Yellen back. More people in Washington, D.C. saying silly things. You were very nice with that one, Gary.
Yeah, silly was a kind word. Janet Yellen was the former chair of the Federal Reserve. She is currently the Treasury Secretary. Now, for people wondering why we pick on her so much, it's because she's bad at her job or bad at her jobs. This week, she came out and said she is, I'm quoting, concerned about the future of the American economy if the budget deficit continues to increase. Okay, so first of all, she's right. This is a huge problem, right? Unlimited spending in Washington. This is what has taken down every empire since before Rome, right? Too much war, debt, foreign interventions. This is all of these empires end with overspending and too much debt. So let's give her credit. She's right. The problem is that for somebody who spent a lifetime in Washington, D.C. as an insider, and as somebody who was chair of the Federal Reserve, who's secretary of the Treasury, her complaining about the finances of the United States sort of, it's how is she separating herself from the mess that she helps create? And, one of my favorite follows on Twitter or now X is Rudy Havenstein, who commented on this. And we'll put the image up. He commented, if you only had any influence on this over the past couple of decades, right? And Rudy is right. How can you be a lifetime Washington insider who chaired the Federal Reserve, who's head of the Treasury Department, and you're complaining about the finances of the U.S.? This is your department, lady. This is the thing. You have one job. Do the job. Stop complaining about everybody else. Now, there are many people who thought some of our comments on the risks to democracy were intended as indirect criticism of President Trump, right? And so, previously, I'm saying Yellen is right to be concerned about the future of the country if we don't get the budget deficit under control. Now she's criticizing the candidate from the other party, and there's a great question about whether this is fair or not.
We've talked about this, both sides of the aisle, right? President Trump has been talking about trying to change the Fed to be responsive to policy goals of the White House. Current White House obviously has made it clear their desire for lower interest rates. What's the answer here, Gary, from DKI in terms of what we do with the Fed?
So, first of all, this is the second area where we agree with Treasury Secretary Yellen. She's right. She's right to criticize President Trump, and here's why. In the last couple of weeks, President Trump has come out and said if he's reelected, he wants to make the Federal Reserve, which right now is considered nominally independent, subject to supporting the policy goals of the White House. And the issue with that is instead of having an independent Fed, and they're not completely independent, but nominally independent, that they will then be beholden to the White House. Well, Rob, I'm going to tell you something. Every person who's president is going to want low interest rates and lots of stimulus because that makes the economy look better. It doesn't improve the economy, but free money, people like that. And if you want to have a rising stock market, rising asset prices, lots of business development, then you set up this kind of policy. And so President Trump is saying, hey, if I'm back in the White House, I want to remove the independence of the Fed, and I want them to support my policy goals, except what that means for everybody here is that's going to mean massive amounts of additional spending, malinvestment, asset bubbles, greater income inequality, and lots of more inflation for the rest of us. Does anyone want to sign up for this? Yellen is right to criticize him, but here's the issue. The current White House, the administration that she serves, has been calling for lower rates from the Federal Reserve all year. And when Powell made it clear, you're not getting that, we're going to hold firm, higher for longer is his response. They've said, okay, fine, then we're going to undo what you're doing, and we're going to push through trillions of dollars of additional stimulus. Remember, while the Federal Reserve can raise interest rates, Congress and the White House, by engaging in lots of stimulative spending, can reverse what the Fed is doing. And we've been talking about that a lot. And so the issue I have here is the current White House should stop trying to influence Fed policy. President Trump should stop talking about trying to influence Fed policy. Secretary Yellen should stop talking about, acting like she's had no say or influence over the economic mess we're in. She's been in a position of control and power for decades. She also should stop blaming one side for something that the administration she supports is doing. This is a bipartisan problem. And I have two policy prescriptions for all this. One is everybody should shut up. Just stop talking. Stop talking about the Fed. Stop blaming the problems on everybody else. You want to fix it, fix it. You're in power right now. Do something. The other thing is DKI is on team end the Fed. The idea that a group of unelected bureaucrats in the Federal Reserve, that they should be setting the price of risk and time, which is the most important metric in the market, is kind of a silly idea. The only thing that's worse than that is having somebody in the White House setting Federal Reserve policy. Like that's the only thing that would be worse. We should let the market set these rates and the Fed and everybody shut up. That's our view on it.
Yeah, I figured you were going to say that. And we have hashtag end the Fed. So that leads us to our next point with Gary being micro famous, maybe. I think anytime you have an imposter, that means you're definitely ruffling some feathers one way or another.